I think we don't understand quite how far it spread for two reasons. One is, as you said, there can be mild illness. In fact, 80% of people have a really mild illness, and some people may have no symptoms at all. So that does make it hard to detect, and that's why when you have ability to...
There's people
sort of
being targeted by these 5G, 60 gigahertz weapons, and it's taking the oxygen from them. And then other people are not being targeted.
There wasn't a lot of testing capacity in the U.S. So just late last week, some of the states have been able to run those tests themselves and not have to send the samples all the way to Atlanta and wait for those test results. They've also opened up the criteria and are able to test more people. Those criteria were really narrow. You had to have traveled from China in the last 14 days or have had contact with a known sick person before to get a test.
60 gigahertz to suck the oxygen out of people,
for being
and
able
they're
to test
falling
people.
out
So
from
we should be getting a better handle.
As states start to ramp up their ability to test, there's also a concern about the next phase, which is hospitalization. What do we know in Washington State, for example, about whether they have the capacity?
Well, they got 60 gigahertz running through the Chinese hospitals.
So they've said in a press conference today that some of the hospitals are already feeling stressed by this, and certainly we know that there's no perfect preparedness. Our
so
hospitals
once
are
they're
pretty busy
quarantined, they can't never get out of there
so
because they're being hit with the viruses.
Today,
so they
the World
never,
Health
or not the
Organization
viruses,
suggested that countries really look at
the frequencies, so they never get well.
Free up more capacity. Sometimes hospitals in Seattle area may be looking at how can they maybe defer certain types of procedures to help make space for if they're going to have a lot of people who have a more severe illness who will need intensive care. So these are things that our hospitals need to be thinking about, and they all should have a plan for this so-called surge. They are starting to see this, they've said, in Seattle.
I want to also ask about concerns for individuals. You know, this is described as a flu-like virus, but do we have more specifics now about what it really looks like? And when someone dies from this virus, what is it that is actually the problem? Is it respiratory failure?
So we do have some pretty good information coming out of China. Again, that's their population, their healthcare system. But for those people who are very severely sick, we know two things. One is, yes, it often is this something called ARDS. It's a very bad respiratory complication, like a very complicated pneumonia. And that seems to be what is leading to people dying. We also know from the experience of China which people are most at risk. So the people who should be taking more precautions, who should be hand washing and really making sure
they all got dry coughs and there's no phlegm, and that's how you judge pneumonia. But now all of a sudden it's a complicated pneumonia. I don't think so.
Young ages, 60s, for example, 50s even, or if you have an
and notice how she put it off on China. Oh, but that's China's healthcare system. In the meantime, this lady on the internet is talking about how they're trying to kill people through the healthcare system with these vaccines.